Gonna put you in the corner over there and it'll be fine. Hey, thank you for joining the Escape With Me Book Club. Escape with me, Sam Reiner.
And me, Caitlin.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering the book from beginning to end, so remember, there will be spoilers. Today we're going to New Orleans. New Orleans, oh no.
Nylands.
I'm from the South, but I'm not from Louisiana.
That's a big difference.
I'm just gonna go with how the song says it. New Orleans, Louisiana, United States. Published September 6th, 2022. We're doing it. We're catching up. Which, by the way, was the only book that came out that year. 2022 was almost there. No other books came out. Even in the UK, cough, cough, but we'll get there. Almost there is the 13th installment in the Disney's Twisted Tales series, with a new author coming in and over a year break since the last book. Does the author find their footing, or is it an awkward beginning?
Okay, quick question. When did we first record? Because I feel like we're rapidly approaching our first recording session together, and it's crazy to think that we're reading a book that was published around the time we first started recording. I can't quite remember.
Let's see. I can tell you when the episode came out.
At the very least, yeah.
A Whole New World came out in July 25th, 2022.
Whoa.
Yeah. So before then, for sure, I've gotten pretty far ahead, thankfully, so I can have a life. But I don't know how far ahead I was at that time.
But even taking out recording, yeah.
This book came out after that episode.
That's wild. That's wild to think of how long we've been doing this.
Their publishing schedule is really inconsistent.
Yeah, it's wild.
At best, they'll come out with 2 a year. But then this is the only book that came out in 2022. And it had been almost a year, because what once was mine, it was in 2021. And I want to say it was earlier than September.
Wow.
And so it'd been like a year since a book came out. And then we're coming up to next year when 3 different books came out, one being a UK only / Australia, which I still haven't decided if I'm okay with that or not. I mean, I'm not okay with it.
No.
Because I'm like, what the heck? I mean, I kind of get why they get Sword in the Stone, but why do they get Incredibles?
Yeah.
I have questions about that one specifically. But yes, this book came out after we started doing Twisted Tales stuff.
That's wild.
We are catching up. I believe in us.
We're coming for you, Twisted Tales.
We're eventually going to be able to do something else with our lives.
Oh, say it ain't so.
But background on this came out in, I want to say, the 2010s. Let's see.
You mean Princess and the Frog?
Which, fun fact, we have done an episode on the book that inspired Princess and the Frog.
Oh, nice.
It came out in 2009.
9. Wow.
Which I was really close. I thought it was 2010, so I'm very proud of myself. But before that, it was Ariel or Belle or this, that, and the other thing. But I didn't feel very strongly towards any of them. And then Tiana came out, and that's my girl. She's a hardworking woman who wants to get her job and needs to learn to chill out once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it spoke to me a little bit. So I love Tiana, and so very excited. I love Tiana. And here's one of the things I'm sad about. They don't have Ray.
Yes.
It's hinted at that Ray died, and this is a sequel to the movie, basically. It's after the movie.
I mean, he did.
And he did, and so I'm just really bummed that Ray's not in there, because he's one of my favorite characters. But we have the rest of the cast, and I love Tiana, obviously, but I also love Charlotte, because that girl's real. She's the real best friend here.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my gosh, Tiana, you love this boy? I'll kiss him so you can have him. Oh, Tiana, I'm going to make you come out and have a good time, and here's my dress, and here's a this, that, and the other thing. And we'll get to how the book handles the disparities between them, because it's kind of hinted at the movie, but then she turns into a frog and there's an adventure. But the book definitely tackles it better on that front. And so I was just like, it's very important for me that you get Charlotte right.
Yes. And I felt like they did.
It would be so easy to take her character, because the movie could have done it too. She could have been a spoiled little selfish rich kid.
Yes.
And she is, but with redeeming qualities that make her a very, very good friend.
Yes.
And so I was like, it's very important that you get Tiana right. And it's very important that you get Charlotte right for me. I don't actually really care much about Naveen. He's okay.
Yeah, I liked him. So while reading this book, I went and I rewatched Princess and the Frog because my background with it, I was just looking up what other movies came out during this year. So in the same year, 2009, in like March and April, the Hannah Montana movie came out. That's how far back this is in our psyches, right? The Hannah Montana movie came out, and then Up came out, and then this premiered at the very end of the year. It came out in December. And I don't really remember. I mean, 2009, what were we doing? We were
in 8th grade, to give our ages away a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't know. This one did not stick with me much as a kid. And I know the lyrics to the song. I know it's really good and that I enjoyed it, but I didn't watch it multiple times.
Oh yeah. Evangeline's on our wedding playlist.
Yeah. I went back and rewatched it this week and it's so good.
It's so good. I feel like it got overshadowed. Not as badly as Brave did, but I feel like it got overshadowed because when did Rapunzel comes out? 2010. Rapunzel came out the next year, and I feel like all the hype was around Rapunzel. But yeah, no, I love Tiana. I love this movie. I love the messages. Naveen's okay.
I think it's ironic when you see him in the beginning and the end. He is real handsome. And so not having him in his human form the entire time.
So is every other Disney prince.
No, they're not. Listen, there's a spectrum and there's a ranking, and it would be very easy to sit here and do that for the next hour instead.
Who's ugly? What prince is ugly? Name one.
I don't think they're ugly. I just definitely think they've got different levels. Like Flynn Rider and Naveen aren't on the same level.
Please. He is just Aladdin 2.0. They even got the same dimple.
Nah. I'm looking at pictures now. I got to pull something up.
But anyway, Philip's my man. He fought a dragon.
Fair.
So that's our background there. Before we get too far in, because I could rant for forever.
Yeah.
Age level YA still. And we have a very, very short content warning where we have death of a parent, death of the spouse, not as heavy, but still there. Black magic, racism, kidnapping, gore, and blood. And I'm just saying, it's a dark magic book. If Liz did this, look what Liz did to Beauty and the Beast, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's 100% right.
I kept thinking back to the first book where it's black magic with Jafar and the nefarious thing and the basically torture scene when he's tearing up the carpet. And then we have this one where it's like, oh, I just throw some stuff in the pot and see what happens. Making it a little bit trivial because I think she's being true to life to what actual voodoo is.
Yeah.
Instead of going for the fantastical. But just the comparison of the two, I'm like, Liz would have done this very differently.
It would have been so dark.
And I'm not saying she would have done it well.
No.
Because Beauty and the Beast, she also tried to tackle racism, which I did not think she handled great. She tried really hard, and she tried. And this one handled it a lot better. Which, fun fact about the author, because I had to look her up, she is from New Orleans.
Okay, makes sense.
But she's mainly known for romance books?
Yes, let me tell you the confusion, because when I tried to find this on Audible, I typed in Almost There and it wouldn't come up. And I was like, well, that's really weird. So I had to look her up by her name. Y'all, there's a lot. There's a lot of them.
There's a lot. There is a lot of them. And they have names like The Dating Playbook, The Hookup Plan, The Boyfriend Project. But because she has that background of being from small town New Orleans, I feel like she has a better place to actually talk about the culture of New Orleans and how voodoo is used in real life instead of going for the fantastical like Liz would have done where, oh yeah, it's juicy, it's dramatic, it's whatever, but is it true to life? Not really. So that's why I think even though it does have black magic, it doesn't have that much of content warnings. Judge a book by its cover is Tiana, and I thought flowers were going to be important.
Yeah.
And they kind of are, but not really. I thought it was, she would have to find the flower quest or that the flower was a big symbol of something. And no, it's just the pretty flower that was in the movie.
Yeah, it definitely gave you kind of like what once was mine. So I don't know. As they go, it doesn't really give anything away.
They never did, I swear. The hard thing was always like, oh, look, it's Aladdin. Oh, look, it's Sleeping Beauty.
Well, no, there's been some titles that'll have, like we talked about, like on the Hercules one, the vase, and then in the Alice in Wonderland one, there were like all those little things.
Alice in Wonderland had a lot of clues. I will give that one that.
But this one has Nothing. Obviously, the sides of buildings, and there's the tram that she takes a couple times.
There's the green sky.
And then the bayou.
Which gave bayou vibes, but also gave me more dark magic vibes. I thought maybe hurricanes were going to be a part.
Hurricanes?
Maybe. Because you get green skies with tornadoes and hurricanes and stuff like that.
Oh, I assumed it was green just because green is the primary color of this film.
Yeah, I don't know, but the vibe of it all. Also, you can see a train car. No, not a train car.
A trolley.
A trolley car, thank you. Which actually gets mentioned a lot.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just general New Orleans infrastructure, and then the bayou and a flower and Tiana. Woo!
Yep.
I will say this. I do like how they use the shading to be like, nah, she black though.
That's true, yeah.
Most of them are predominantly white, and that works with the shading.
Yeah, the silhouette shape.
And so all the silhouette shapes are in shadow, and then it doesn't really give you skin tone vibes, except for this one, which is very strongly like, no, she black. Appreciate, because we're not going to talk about Lunar Chronicles and how on the cover turned their black character into a purple character. Not mad at that at all, but yeah, that's it. I did think though, based on the question is, what if Tiana made a deal that changed everything? So I thought it was going to be the beginning of the movie, and instead of Naveen making a deal, it would be Tiana.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because, as I've pointed out to you, how many of the books are just, but what if the female character did it?
Yeah, that's true. Or like you said, really, like we were to go back, how many of the books allow you to take everything that you know from what happened and then change the ending? All I can think of so far is Hercules did that. Not very many of them have, okay, now take the events of what happened and we're going to change this minor detail at the end and give you extra.
Yeah, because Alice in Wonderland is a sequel for sure. All the events happened, and then 10 years later, other stuff happens. So I wouldn't even consider that, because it starts in the graveyard where Dr. Facilier hunts her down and is like, hey, I can give you your restaurant and it's going to be amazing and this, that, and the other thing. And in the movie, she attempts to smash the thing, and then the shadow catches it. In this, he offers more, and he's like, I can get you a restaurant, but I can get you your daddy back, and I can turn Naveen back from a frog.
Yep.
And Tiana's like, hey, you have to make my friend human, Lewis.
Yep. Which didn't happen in the film.
Which did not happen in the film. So he ends up making a deal with her, and he's like, hey, you just need to put this potion in your gumbo to keep your dad alive, but actually, dramatic irony, it's to control people.
Yeah, for him. It's mentioned vaguely once how he preys on people as they leave the restaurant. It's like the only time it's mentioned.
Okay. Let's just get into it. I hate Facilier. He's so dumb. Facilier, he's so freaking dumb.
Yeah.
And I hate that. Because in the movie, he's conniving and quick-witted, and that's the one character I'm like, he got robbed. He's such a good villain. Even for people that don't pay much attention to Tiana, he's up there as a really, really good villain. And his villain song, so good.
Yeah, Friends on the Other Side is great.
And he gives her this, hey, put this in your gumbo. His goal is to get to Eli LaBeouf. I can't do anything. This is why I have co-stars that do audiobooks. But yeah, that's French. I can't. Anyway, put it in your gumbo. That'll be great. Oh no, except he doesn't eat the gumbo. He eats a shrimp dish. I can't pronounce it.
Etouffee. It's a Cajun dish, yeah.
It is a Cajun dish. I think it's made of shrimp.
Has shrimp in it, yes.
So it just jumps to basically a year from then, from making the contract, and his friends from the other side waited this long, first of all, to be like, hey, Tiana didn't sign a contract. So if she doesn't sign a contract by Mardi Gras, we're going to take your soul instead. And he goes, gosh, darn it, I really need to figure out this rich dude stuff. It takes him a year.
Yeah, to figure that out.
To figure out that he's not eating the gumbo, he's eating something else. But even if he didn't know that, he knew something was wrong. He knew that whatever was in the gumbo, he was saying, oh, they're immune to it, instead of changing his plan.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, if he's immune to it, I need to do something else.
Yeah, that's true.
He waits and then is like, oh, crap, and then tries to trick Tiana to be like, okay, now you have to put it in everything.
Yeah.
And she's like,
No,
that's sus as heck. We had a deal. The deal's going fine. I'm doing my part. You do yours. And then he's like, welp.
Oh no, what do I do?
I'm just going to keep harassing her by kidnapping her friends. It is the most child-friendly kidnapping I have ever
Yes, that is true.
He's just like, hey, I'm collecting people in my back room. Well, gotta go feed them. I'm not a terrible person. And I'm just like, I want to know. I have so many logistics questions about this kidnapping. He kidnaps eventually 5 people, and 2 of them were together? How?
Yeah.
How did he do this? He himself, he has no muscle percentage on that body. What?
Yeah, canonically, Big Daddy LaBeouf is like a massive dude. I'm sorry.
And he's surrounded by servants.
Yeah, I'm sorry. How?
And he just walks into his house and kidnaps him and takes him down to the French Quarter. And he had to take a taxi cab to get there. So how the heck is he carrying this dude?
Yeah.
Down the street / taking him into a taxi and being like, nah, it's fine. I'm just kidnapping this man. Get him back to his house, into his back room with the 4 other people. How are you feeding these people? How are you getting them water? How are you making sure they're alive and not escaping? How did you get them here? Why did you get them here? Tiana didn't even notice they were gone.
I mean, he does point that out. He did point that out at some point. But yeah, no, like you said, they were kidnapped. Just deal with it.
This is his plan. He goes from, oh, she won't poison the stuff. Well, I'm going to kidnap people now.
Wow.
That's the summation of his plan.
Yep.
I'm going to intimidate her. Oh, crap. She can't be intimidated. Let me kidnap random people. I'm going to kidnap your pasta seller. What?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to kidnap 2 people you don't really talk to. Childhood friends from the beginning. I'm going to kidnap 2 of them. How are you making these decisions?
Yeah.
Doesn't go for the mom.
No.
That would have been a pretty good kidnap. Doesn't go for Charlotte. Doesn't go for Naveen.
Well, he finally figures out I should go for Naveen, and then
they're not there.
Realizes it's too late. Yeah.
They've left the city. This dude who comes across as all-knowing a little bit because of his friends from the other side and because of the shadows. And it is canonical that the shadows are following her, which, by the way, I don't like that she gaslights herself there, because literally in the movie, you were kidnapped by shadows. You watched them kidnap you. You know they're real.
Yeah.
You know that's a thing, honey. You know she has shadows, but the shadows are following her everywhere, but he manages to escape to the bayou without him knowing. And then she comes back to New Orleans and he's lucky to find what happened to the shadows.
Yeah.
I hate everything to do with his plan. I hate.
He is not a competent villain. And as always, give me a good, competent villain that I actually have to fight against.
Because it makes it so much better when the hero succeeds.
Yeah, it makes it worth it almost.
And so he doesn't come across as the villain. He just comes across as the henchman to the shadows on the other side. And they're the true villains here. But also technically the universe.
Yeah, and they do explain that at the end. The forces of the universe that he's dabbling in.
Yeah, the universe is like, nah, the scales have tipped. We need to become fog and algae.
Yeah.
That'll teach him for bringing people back from the dead.
Well, it was going to all consume everything and make everything inhabitable.
But still, I've side-eyed that a little bit. Mother Nature can do a lot worse things. Once again, the hurricane would have been the universe is striking back because it is a deadly force and something that can harm New Orleans. Hurricanes. So if this was a precursor to something terrifying, but no, it's just fog, which is really good for moments when he appears in the fog or she almost gets hit by a car.
With the drama.
Really good ambiance.
Yeah. But anything else? Nah.
People move. Are we just going to continue spreading to all of the... I have universe questions too. That aside, I love this book. I gave it 4 stars.
Yeah, honestly.
But to the point of he's not the villain, his part is so small that I can overlook it to enjoy the rest of the book.
Yeah.
That's how little he matters in this.
A little bit, yeah. Even though they swap perspectives, I think the only thing that I do like that they do is they point out he is the epitome of hurt people. And so they give the small insight into his background that he was a little kid who had been abandoned.
And his mom practiced voodoo, which this book makes a very clear point. Voodoo is about helping people through the ancestors. It is not this dark whatever he's doing.
Oh, I guess, yeah, they say it through Rose, because he only just said that his mother's religion, I think is what he calls it. But then Rose does explain, no, if he would just understand, if he would just learn about our religion from our homeland. I think they said Port-au-Prince, so I guess Haiti. At some point I heard Port-au-Prince when I was listening to their stuff. But anyway, I did like that they explained he was just a kid who got manipulated, right, and taken advantage of, and that's just he just continuing to perpetuate perpetuate that with other people.
Yeah, and because he got hurt in life, he wants to hurt other people, and he wants to be powerful enough, because it always came across to me in the movies, he wanted power because he had felt powerless.
Yeah.
And he never wants to feel that way again. And so he does kind of shortcut with the whole friends from the other side. And I am a sucker for the devil don't care. Any story where it's like this dude's dabbling in darkness and badness and this, that, and the other thing, and in the end it comes to bite them in the butt because the devil don't care about their minions. I'm a sucker for that. I love those stories. And so I really like his arc where he's like, no, I just have to do this one more time, just one more time, just one more time.
Yep.
And it ends up he's having to pay the final price for it.
Yeah, because again, you get into contract work, which is something like the Ursula does too, where he was like, he's done this before.
Contract law!
Where he's done this before. Now, he's never swapped a soul before, and that's what's gotten him, right? But his whole thing is, I do this on behalf of other people. I don't have to get them to know what they're doing. That's part of how he buys people in, because they don't realize what they're signing on to, right? Because he does it for them, and then they take on the consequences, except, and then they're like, oh, but wait, there's a little clause in your writing that says you cannot be a representative for a human soul, basically. And he's like, oh, dang.
Yeah, you can't sign the contract for someone else.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do that for somebody else.
And I think that has good buildup, but does he act like someone who's about to lose his soul?
He gets really desperate.
Not really. I mean, he starts getting desperate because she's gone, but once they're face to face again, he's just like, no, really, sign the contract. And she's like, no. And she walks away.
Well, that's fair. He does not push. You know, he's a bigger man than she is. He didn't even resort to physical violence.
Literally, violence is not, I mean, there is violence, obviously, but in the case of, oh, I injured myself with the oar.
Yeah.
Not
we're punching each other.
Person to person violence. That's not even part of this. Every other book so far has had graphic violence in the content warning, and this one does not.
Yeah.
But he kidnaps people by saying, hey, I have people in my back room. And then Tiana's confused where to find them. And that was a whole thing, but that's beside the point.
Well, I guess it follows the same Harry Potter trap where it's just like you become so reliant on your magic and your wit and your skills that you don't realize that there are other options. Because I listened to it, I took it in as he was trying to keep his cool and do what he, because if he came in panicked, obviously Tiana would know that he was playing her, right? That's kind of how I read that part at the end. But he definitely did not resort to more things that he could have.
He's already kidnapping people.
True.
What's one more? First of all, I think Mom would have been a great kidnap victim because, yeah, she would care a lot about that. And so would her dad.
See, what I was convinced was going to happen was we were going to get to the end and then like they were going to know, because at the end, Tiana finally found out at the end of what was going to happen that she was going to lose her soul. But I really thought that her dad was going to eventually know and she was going to tell him, and he was going to sacrifice himself so that she could stay alive and basically take it back.
Yeah.
That's what I was predicting from the beginning would happen. But he died not knowing what happened and everything that she did.
And neither the mom, I feel like the mom owed an explanation, but okay.
Yeah, they don't explicitly say whether or not. And honestly, none of them. It doesn't even seem like she explains to Naveen what happened.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started on that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just skip to the end a little bit. How can I trust Miss Rose? She's been lying to me this entire time by omitting the facts. Excuse me, miss? She knew who I was before we even met. Excuse me? Oh, but I shouldn't tell Naveen. Oh, I shouldn't tell Charlotte. In fact, I'm not going to tell Luis most of this anyway. But it's for their good, so it's fine if I do it. I just hated her so much at that moment. She was so logical and level-headed through this thing. I was so proud of her when Shadow Man comes up and is like, hey, you better do this or your daddy's going to die. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
Our deal was this. I am not doing more than our deal. Goodbye. I don't trust you. Walk off. But then she's going to call Miss Rose just as bad as him because she wanted to protect Tiana?
Yeah.
Mad. We wasted an entire day because she was throwing a temper tantrum.
That's fair. My problem with that wasn't so much because I truly felt like she thought she couldn't tell Naveen because basically he would die. It would unravel all the magic, which would result in...
turn back into a frog or something, yeah.
He would turn back into a frog. Her father would go away. Charlotte, I do think she could have told Charlotte, and I don't think she gives Charlotte enough credit for being able to handle things.
Because when she tells her, Charlotte's like,
okay.
oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. But I will say I did like in her hesitance to accept Rose, because I do get frustrated of how many times do our heroes accept the quote unquote good guy just because they're against the bad guy. They provide little to no explanation or don't give anything that's convincing at all, but they're like, well, everyone's pointing me to them. They have to be the good force to counter this evil, and they accept them. So to some extent, I did like her pushing back on Rose a little bit.
And I can understand that, except at the very moment, Rose was like, okay, come in so I can explain everything. And she's like, how dare you not explain everything? And Rose is like, come in, I'll explain everything. She's like, no, you're just as bad as the Shadow Man. Walks up. How dare she not tell me everything?
Yeah, I should have waited and demanded she explain what's going on.
She was literally going to tell you right that second.
Yeah, exactly.
Pick your battles. You didn't even have to trust her. She could have been like, hey, here's the whole truth of everything. And so that's what I get annoyed at. And she's like, how dare she not tell me the truth? And Rose is like, okay, let me tell you the truth. And she's like, she just keeps secrets from me. How dare she do this? And I'm just, honey, horrible time.
Yeah.
To have this. Just hear her out, and you can be like, I don't believe you. That is a totally fine reaction to say, I don't trust you. I don't believe you. This is sus as heck. Your flowers exploded.
Yeah.
How can you say you're trying to protect me? And that's fine. But don't be mad at her for not telling you when she's trying to tell you and then wasting a day because you didn't want her to. Oh.
Yeah.
When you're doing the exact same thing. Whatever. Most of the book is her and Naveen, and I don't know how I feel about, I call it a misunderstanding trope. It's not necessarily misunderstanding, but it's very annoying.
Yeah.
It's realistic. I could see Tiana just avoiding her problems, but also she's not terribly against confrontation either.
No, when this is her flaw, and this is exactly why you said like her, she is the determined, hardworking, I'm gonna do it all on my own, right? And that is her fatal flaw.
And handled very well in the book, yes.
Yeah, and they do a super good job of it. So I don't think it's miscommunication, and it is deliberately withholding information, but from this perspective of, it is my burden, it is my responsibility to make sure that you are okay, right? And that you don't have to suffer. So I'm gonna take it all on myself.
Yeah, several times she does specifically say, I don't want to get my friends in trouble because of my mess. And so I'm going to handle it. And eventually she gets to the end. She's like, I literally can't do it all.
Yes.
And so she reaches a situation, and that happened in my life as well. It's like, you just reach a point because you literally can't do it all.
Yep.
As much as you want to. Although that's followed by, and then she goes and handles it by herself.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting choice considering she literally just learned, hey, I need to rely on my friends.
Yeah.
But the final showdown is with Shadow Man and her and no one else.
Yep.
You couldn't have brought a heavy.
Well, I also thought Luis was going to get tied up in it. I really thought at one point when she finally comes back home to find her dad, and Luis,
she's like, I should have involved you in this because it affects your life too. And then goes to the Shadow Man by herself to do it again.
No toy. But I honestly thought he was going to go and do something on his own. But again, he didn't. So it was confusing.
Luis is okay. Leans in a little too much that he's a scatterbrain.
Yeah.
And also not enough at the same time.
Yeah.
But he kind of is just there along for the ride. Okay, that's fine, I guess. Nothing to really complain about as a reader. I mean, they have complaints about him, but that's beside the point.
Well, I think that they used him to highlight the questions that you don't, well, granted, he didn't get turned into a human in the movie, but the idea of she made this decision for him, right? Without actually consulting him and letting him make the decision. And she is eventually remorseful for that and realized when she sees how much he misses home and everything. She's like, I'm so sorry.
He should have made that choice.
Yeah, you should have been involved in that decision. Now, granted, in the context of when the decision was made, no, he couldn't have been involved in it, right? She recognizes that she made that
decision for him.
Yeah.
And now he has to live with the consequences of that.
Yeah. So realizing, again, doing it all on your own. And oh my gosh, what was the phrase, though, that Rose gave that I really did like? It was something of like the dogs bark, but something happens at home. It was there towards the end.
I don't know. She had a lot of isms.
Yeah, but the ism was like, your decisions have consequences on other people, especially your family.
Oh, yeah. It was, oh, I know what you're talking about. Anyway, the point of it is you make decisions and those decisions affect those around you as well. It's not just you.
Exactly. And I think that that's the biggest highlight is with Luis.
She has some good ones though. But Charlotte's pretty on point. I'm pretty happy with Charlotte. Probably does her even better than the movie because Tiana's like, I'm going to the bayou by myself to see Mama Odie because someone needs to help me, and she's the only one I can think of. And Charlotte's like, I'm going to go put on pants, which is a huge thing. Once again, this is 1920s.
Yeah.
And this is Charlotte, and she puts on pants, and she goes and find Naveen, and she's like, going to the bayou.
Yeah, it was good.
Which, by the way, I am bummed. This author does not take after Liz or Elizabeth Lim with the name dropping the music from it.
Okay, I want to challenge you on that, because if we look at the list of songs from this movie, I've got it pulled up. It's Dig a Little Deeper, Down in New Orleans, Almost There, When We Were Human, Gonna Take You There, Down in New Orleans Again, Ma Belle Evangeline, and Down in New Orleans Again, right? Okay, so When We're Humans obviously can't really allude to that because she can't bring up that time. New Orleans is simply mentioned just because it's a city. Girl, the number of times I had to hear this woman say in Facilier's voice, my friends on the other side.
That was annoying.
I almost started a count. Of how many times she referenced that phrase. I was like, I'm done with this. The first time I was like, good little jab, but that's the only way he referenced them. Why didn't we come up with a different name for these creatures, for this magic?
I know, but the problem is he doesn't reference them very much in the movie because he's not in most of the movie, but that's the only way he references them. I think that's probably the only way Disney wants to reference them. And so I think that's not so much on the author. I think she's just a rock in the hard place because every time she mentions them, it has to mention it's either my friends on the other side or the shadows.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which some Kingdom Hearts nonsense with the amount of him dropping the shadows and needing to trust your friends. If anyone mentioned heart, I was going to be fit to be tied.
But yeah, so if you take it, they do Friends on the Other Side, they do Almost There, right? So the only other songs are Dig a Little Deeper, When We're Human, and Evangeline and Gonna Take You There. That's it.
I still think she could have if she wanted to. Because, like I said, going down the bayou, they literally go down the bayou.
That's not what the song's called.
No, but you don't have to name drop the title. You can just reference the lyrics and stuff.
That's true.
Because that's definitely the most prevalent lyric.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it was. It was hard to pick up on it sometimes because it would have made sense for Lewis to say that too.
Speaking of, what happened to Lawrence? Like, we just briefly mentioned that he exists and he was a terrible guy for Shadow Man to make a plan with, but...
Oh, yeah.
What happened to him?
That's true. What would have happened to him after that film? Well, no, at the end of the movie, doesn't he get taken away by the shadows? So I guess they would have used the same plot there.
You've seen it sooner than, but my memory was the last time we see him is he transforms into himself. Charlotte sees him and he's like, hello, honey, darling, or something like that.
Yeah.
And she screams and then he screams and runs out of the church crying. And that's the last time I remember seeing him.
Oh gosh, I thought man, maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember.
So I'm just curious. Obviously, he's fired. Facts.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Did he stay in New Orleans? Did he leave? He had to do something. Did he get taken by the shadows? We don't know. It wouldn't have been in this version, though, because we're drawing out a year. Anyway, questions.
Oh, no, here. Okay, no, he went to prison. Big Daddy was informed of the impersonator and ordered his arrest. Despite his pleas for freedom and claims that he was manipulated by Facilier, Lawrence is apprehended and taken to the prison.
Okay.
That's how the movie ended.
He's in jail. Because I would wonder if this new deal would have changed things or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Because technically he would have been arrested after the cemetery, even though they would have been set in motion by things that happened before the graveyard. I don't know. They just straight up are like, screw that guy.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be here.
And we don't care about him. He sucked.
I mean, he was super annoying.
Yeah, also facts. He was kind of an idiot. But yeah, weird things are happening. People have memory loss, which we'll get to. Why am I saying we'll get there? Might as well.
Yeah, we've not done this in order.
I don't think we need to. The order makes sense reading it, but to talk about it, I don't think we really need to sit down and talk about everything that happened. It's a lot of talking.
Yeah.
It is a lot of dialogue.
A lot of interacting with characters. A lot of cooking.
A lot of cooking. But she talks to the Shadow Man. Then she goes to work and she talks to her dad and she talks to the head waitress and then she's cooking. And then she goes out and talks to her guests, but she's avoiding Naveen. And then Charlotte comes in and talks to her. And then Charlotte goes back and talks to Naveen. And it's a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
So we'll just come out with the out. I don't like at the end. So you have people like her boss from Dukes.
Yeah.
And he comes in and he's like, oh, your food's good. And Tiana's talking to him or whatever. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, Duke's has been closed for a year. Tiana's like, I was working there 4 months ago. And so she's like, that's weird. And then there's this other lady who's like, I haven't baked since my husband died in the war. And Tiana's like, I literally bought a cake from you last week or something like that.
Yeah.
And the explanation is that also there's a huge amount of info dumps at the end. But
yes,
the universe is snatching memories back because the dad shouldn't be alive. And so the universe is like, how dare you have memories? Let me take them back. But snatching memories doesn't make sense because they're changed, not gone. Like the dude thinking that Duke's has been closed for a year, that's a different memory. That's not, oh, I don't remember you quitting or something like that, or forgetting. Something's completely changed.
Yeah, I don't know.
And so some of them work, whereas the baking, it's like, oh, I haven't baked in forever. Okay, yeah, you lost a year of memories, but it's not, oh, I don't remember doing that. It's, I don't know. It feels like they were changed and not manipulated. And so I was just a little confused by that, how that explanation works. I don't know if that worked. Maybe it made sense to other people, but I'm like,
Inconsistent magic. No, I mean, because I was kind of tying it into, because she explained you got a fate that should have never been, right? The universe did what it had to do
to right itself.
No. So that people wouldn't have realized that her father was gone, right? Because obviously, like, he had been dead for, 10 years at least, maybe closer to 15.
And that's my issue with the cake thing, because, oh, I haven't done that since the war. That's over 10 years of memories gone, not just a year. It's a whole thing anyway.
Well, and so I honestly thought of it as, oh, so it's places where James being back and where their memory would have had to have been filled in because of the difference of him being back, right? That's where it was manipulated, but I might be wrong. Well, she may not have quit Duke's in the same amount of time, or maybe she quit Duke's immediately in the original timeline, and so maybe it shut down after that. But in this other timeline where James is there, she stayed and finished up saving for her restaurant so her and her dad could open it. I don't know. It was weird, inconsistent. My brain was trying to reconcile it somehow.
I don't know. It came across as magic.
Yeah, fair.
I also hate that it takes Tiana forever to realize that blowing purple powder in my face causes illusion to happen.
Yeah.
It happens to her so many times and she gets bought up by it every single time. And it would have been something if he can just cause the illusions or something and they just are thrown in about and it's like, oh, okay, do I question my reality? Do I not? But literally blowing powder in your face. And she knows it because she misses every single time. And he blew purple powder in my face. And I'm just like, girl, even if you don't know it causes illusions, you really need to piece together 1 and 2. He blows stuff in my face. And oh my gosh, here's my perfect restaurant. And it's near the end of the book when she's finally like, oh, this is an illusion.
Yeah. She said, curse that man and his illusions. I should know by now. I'm like, yeah, you should.
You really should. You really should. Oh, honey, stop being dense. She has moments where she's so good and she's so on top of it. And I'm so proud of her. And then she has moments like that where I'm like, you need more sleep or something. Honey.
Although what she does in how she tricks him, what her and Rose came up with, I really liked the tricking him, basically using his own arrogance against him.
I do like tricking him with his own game. I don't like that he fell for it so easy. He's so dumb.
Well, again, he was desperate. That was the desperation there at the end showing it because he was like, oh, I'm going to do this and then everything will be okay. Like, I'll figure out how I'm going to survive, right? Tiana signed the contract. I'm going to live. And obviously, what he wasn't telling her is that once she signed that contract, she was dead. He tried to say like, oh, it can be any random stranger off the street. He knew as soon as she signed it, she was the one who was dying.
But he's so dumb because she's like, oh, look, I have this potion. And he's like, yeah, the potion I gave you. And she's like, no, I dumped it out. And Rose made a new potion and it's supposed to make all of my dreams come true.
Yep.
Which I feel like having your mom a practitioner of what Rose does, you should know she can't do that.
Probably.
But no, she's like, I'm going to drink this once you're gone. But I'm so good out of the kindness of my heart. You can drink half of it.
We'll go halvesies.
We'll go halfsies. And he asks, why? Yes, why? That's a great question. Proud of you. And she goes, because
I'm just that nice.
Because why not? Because I'm so kind. And you did give me a year of your daddy back, which I totally believe that would stroke his ego. But my dude just drinks the whole thing. And not even like a sip to be like, or stealing it away for later. He just guzzles the whole thing. So stupid.
Yeah, a little bit.
And so he gets got by the shadows, not as dramatically as the movie. The movie's pretty a horror scene.
Yeah, I definitely think it was toned down.
He just gets pulled into the shadows. It's toned down a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely toned down.
And then her friends show up. And then, like I said, Tiana's confused because he says they're in the back room. And then her friends show up and Tiana's like, look everywhere because there could be a secret room or something. And it was like, honey, it's a back room.
They're right there. And Luis is like, found them.
And Luis is the one that finds them. You know it's easy when he can find them. And Lizette picks the lock, which is really cool. Once again, hey, my friends are helpful. And for a dude that put in jail Lawrence, she walks in, she's like, don't worry, the Shadow Man can't hurt anyone. And
yeah,
he's just cool with that answer. Eli's just like, yep, sounds good. Not going to say anything.
Yeah, okay.
Who's Lizette? Lizette is the niece of Mama Odie because they go to Mama Odie's and she's out visiting because she would be far too convenient. So they get little niece Lizette. We don't even get a snake.
Nope.
It makes me sad. She has so many animals. So she's the niece and so she can do some healing stuff.
Yeah.
Which is great. And she does healing stuff. And then comes back to New Orleans because she's like, oh, my auntie, she can do stuff. And I was already suspecting Miss Rose for a while. I was like, how far back? Well, let's see. When Shadow Man ran away from Miss Rose in the fog, I said, does your mom have a pet snake? Because I thought that's how they were related, but no, they're sisters.
Oh, yeah. So I can't remember where it was, but I probably got your notes and then started making comments about the time they were heading into the bayou. And so Rose had showed up. And so I initially thought Mama Rose was going to be Odie in disguise.
That was my first thought. And then she kept doing some other stuff. First of all, Madame Odie's blind.
Yes, that's true.
So probably not that. And just the way she was operating, I was like, I don't think you're quite Mama Odie, but I definitely think you're related to her.
This woman is obviously connected to something.
Yeah. And yep, sister. She's been trying to protect Tiana, although they don't really go into it. How? And so I have magic questions, but I will just accept it because that was by the end of the book. And it was like, we got bigger things to do, which... Around this time when she's talking to Madame Rose, she goes to the house and her dad's sick. He's aging before their eyes, like 70, 80, 90, like getting there and very clearly dying.
Yeah.
And Lizette's like, you have to go to my aunt, but she's still refusing. And they spend the night. And in the morning, she wakes up and decides to go to Lizette. Her friends just disappear.
Yeah.
She goes to Rose, talk to her. Rose is like, you have to accept this. You have to give him permission to pass. She goes back. Very touching moment. I teared up a little bit. Absolutely. Which, by the way, Miss Rose gives her a chant and Tiana recites it perfectly the first time and remembers it during an extremely emotional moment. That's always a movie or book trope that I've never understood. You're going to have to write that down and she's still going to mispronounce it. Okay. But she does this chant and says goodbye. Goes outside. The fog's thinning just around the house and rose petals are coming from the sky. Really emotional moment. She talks about her and how her mom's handling it too.
Yeah.
And the three people, Luis, Naveen, and Lizette, who are staying at the house, aren't mentioned. And she's just like, after that, she's like, okay, now I'm going to go see the Shadow Man. I'm like, what happened to your friends?
Where are your people?
That was a little bit of a consistency error to me, but she does the showdown. It's fine.
Yeah.
Gives a Mickey Mouse signature, which says goodbye, Shadow Man, which I like. Love contract law.
Getting them with contract technicalities.
This has just proven to me that more fantasies should have lawyers. You got all these people coming out here with the contracts. Someone had to make those contracts. Magic lawyers.
Yeah.
Gotta love some contract law. There's some cute moments between Tiana and Naveen in the bayou. Here's the thing I'm bummed about. He's slowly getting memories back.
Yeah.
As time goes on. And he remembers being in the bayou with Tiana. He remembers her hitting him, but he can't remember why. He's like, oh, he knows the name Mama Odie when he shouldn't, and this, that, and the other thing. Here's what I was expecting. Tiana cooks something in the bayou, makes food. I was expecting Naveen to start mincing and then being like, how the heck do I know how to mince?
That would have been good.
Why do I know this word exists? Mincing would have been a really easy one to be like, why do I know this? Because it was so cute in the movie. It's part of the proposal. He minced a bunch of fruit.
Yeah.
And so I was hoping mincing would come up and it didn't. And I was a little bit bummed about that.
That would have been good.
They get stuck and there's some survival stuff. Like alligator shoots up. Luis is sad because he knows the alligator and it still tried to attack him. And it's a whole thing, which So Luis decides to stay human, except why does the spell let him stay human? Because they had to get rid of the dad being alive and all of his magic stuff got lifted. And the reason he was alive is that contract with Sicilier, which has gotten paid, and everything should have come to a close at midnight, the Mardi Gras day, like a year after the contract signed and whatever. And so I was a little confused how he got to stay human now that everything else is concluded.
Yeah, I didn't think that deep about it, but you're right. It was part of the same contract as Tiana, bringing back her dad. So,
Yeah, and so it was a little weird that he got to keep that. Like, the universe is like, nah, we got most of what we wanted. It's fine.
Yeah.
Alligators turning into people, that's totally lower tier than bringing a human back to life, ? I actually feel like it's only one tier lower, but that's beside the point. Like, you're creating a human where a human shouldn't exist, but universe don't care. So he decides to stay human in the epilogue, and he'll just row out to the bayou. And so I thought he was going to turn back alligator, and it'd be like the movie where Tiana lets him play music, but it's okay.
I wanted him to be able to be a were-crocodile where he could shape back and forth. Best of both worlds.
I mean, that would be the best solution. Yeah, he can go home and be with his family, he can visit, but no, he just decides to stay human. And okay, so here's the thing with the sugar mill. So she and her daddy save up money, and because they're working together, they're able to open their own little place. It's not in the sugar mill because that got sold. So at the end of the book, the dude that did buy the sugar mill, for whatever reason, is like, hey, I'm moving actually, and I don't need the sugar mill, but hey, you seem pretty cool. You run a cool restaurant and you mentioned wanting to buy it. So I'm going to sell it to you right here, right now.
Yeah.
I like that better than the movie, because in the movie, Naveen and Louis are there to strong arm them into taking the down payment.
Yeah.
But this way, the Finner brothers don't get a cut. No money for you.
Yes. No, that was really good, because they were just, I don't know, that you definitely got like a darker side to them, I feel like, in this one. Or at least she hops on and talks a lot more about where that comes from, the rejection of the loan and all that kind of stuff comes from in this one. So it was nice to know that she just got around it.
Because the author, who is a Black woman, so I'm not surprised, understands the nuances of racism.
Yes, true.
And how much it affects people, because we have a couple scenes of racist things happening, such as they go to a department store because Charlotte wants like 8 dresses or whatever for the millions of parties she's going to over the weekend leading into the week. It's like a 4-day thing. It's not like a whole week, but it's a good portion. Anyway, goes to the department store. She tries to get Tiana to try on a hat when this manager, who's been staring down Tiana this entire time, comes over and is like, she can't have the merchandise. She can't try on the merchandise. You guys need to leave because you put in merchandise. And Charlotte wants to throw a fit. She is a loyal friend who is definitely not afraid of confrontation. And she just wants to throw a fit to get this woman in trouble, to make them retract their policy, this, that, and the other thing. And Tiana just wants to leave.
Yeah, she's like, nope, not ready to confront this today. Too many things on my brain.
Because how real is that, though? Because for Charlotte, that's the first time ever that's happened. She has energy. She has fight. She doesn't live in that world. Consequences for her are nothing. But Tiana does this every day. And she could absolutely get worse stuff. Like she mentions, I could go to jail.
Yep.
Because they don't want me in their store. And they will never throw you in jail for that. And so even though you're fighting on my behalf, I'm still the one worse out for it. And there's other stuff that the author sprinkles in that she doesn't address directly, but I've read other books that do address it. The fact that her dad is LaBeouf, Mr. LaBeouf, but Tiana's dad is Mr. James.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing, especially in the South, the disparity of using last names for white people and using first names for Black people. And it doesn't come up in this book, but it's very accurately portrayed for the time period. And I don't even think it would be a thought in Tiana's mind at the time, because there's so many other super blatant things.
Yeah.
But obviously, as time goes on, and especially civil rights movement, and we've had a chance to look back and stuff and start handling the niche and micro racist issues, because she's handling the macro. She's not even allowed to touch the merchandise or she could get thrown in jail. That's really, really extra stuff. But there are smaller things that she does tackle with. And I think it's really well done to show how tired Tiana is and the energy she has to put into educating her best friend, who would not think she has a racist bone in her body, but because of the way our brains work, everyone has these mental shortcuts that they create because of things around them, like the media and this, that, and the other thing. And unless you actively deal with it, like you could make shortcuts you don't even know about. So it's not even a thought in Charlotte's brain, but Tiana points out, no, you still treat me differently too.
Yes. Well, and I really appreciated the conversation in the bayou where she really helped her understand. She was like, Charlotte, like, not that I ever asked or wanted or needed it, but did it not even cross your mind to offer help when you knew this was my life? She's like, well, I knew you wouldn't want it. She's like, absolutely, you're right.
She didn't want money, but that doesn't mean.
But it didn't even cross your mind. And if it didn't, do you now see why you didn't even think, it wasn't even on your brain to help me out? And that you can tell is a turning point for Lottie.
Yeah, you don't use your political connections. And Tiana does a really good job of being like, this is Black people and poor people. Because during the time, because that's what Charlotte represents. She is the white woman, but she is also rich. And those are two barriers that people that grow up around Tiana, those are just barriers that they'll never be able to cross. And I love that Charlotte becomes an active person. Like she works in New Orleans to help the schools.
Yeah.
To make those better. But at the end, she's coming back from the capital. She's coming back from, I think, Shreveport is their capital. And she's just straight up like, yeah, I'm going to start fighting this fight, which is great because especially in this time period, that's a huge thought.
Yep.
The 60s, I want to say it was 65? When was, okay, desegregation. So it looks like it came out in 1955, and then they were just ignoring it for a while, and then they would do it a little bit, token compliance, and then the Civil Rights Act of 1964 came out and was like, hey, you'll lose federal funding if you don't desegregate, and, the whole Alabama situation, and then, of course, there were lawsuits and Supreme Court cases. Yeah, it was 1954, Brown versus Board, and they weren't completely desegregated until 1968. So that's how far ahead Lottie kind of is. Granted, she's not saying desegregation. She's just saying, hey, we should have more resources put to poor schools. But
yeah.
And so Lottie doing that, she's ahead of her time there. But she has the energy to fight it, and she can speak to people. And unfortunately, she has to be the one to speak to people. Although I was a little surprised that they didn't pull a silly woman, because she is a woman talking to the state Congress in the 1920s. Like, can you imagine?
Fair, but related to a lot of powerful people, like her dad. So power and influence does push pretty far.
True. So they just got the right to vote. Women got the right to vote in 1920 because of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. So that's kind of a big thing.
Yes.
But I like the utopic idea that she will be listened to and that she can get funding. So I'm not going to look too hard on that. It's a happy ending in that way, but she's really doing her part. And I just love that. I feel like the book Charlotte is even better than the movie Charlotte. She's good.
Well, she just has so many more opportunities. Like you said, the majority of the original film is them out in the bayou.
As frogs.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of interaction with other characters. So yeah,
she's done really well. That was very important to me. Tiana, okay, let me be honest. The first 100 pages were boring.
What was the first 100 pages?
Nothing happened. That's the problem. They set up the wish and whatever, and then Tiana cooks.
Yeah.
That's basically it. And then after that, I feel like it gets its footing more because it came across as a little awkward to me, trying to get your footing into it. Once the ball started rolling, it was getting really good. It just felt like the first 100 pages were set up and then the book happened. And the book's about 460 something. So it's a good long book, but that's a large chunk of the book to be boring.
Yeah, to be fair, though, I feel like that's all of them. The first couple hours of the book always just drag on for me.
Except for Elizabeth Lim, but she is God tier.
But no, I mean, honestly, I found myself for this one, and truth be told, I liked the audiobook narrator was great. She was really good. I really liked her a lot. I was looking her up earlier while we were talking, just to see, like, she hasn't really done a whole lot. I don't recognize her, at least acting stuff, and I haven't heard her voice before, but her accent work was really good. I feel like she did a really good job with Tiana, and she did a really good job with the varying New Orleans accents, and then Naveen with kind of that French-ish, very sophisticated accent.
And Creole accent too. Those are hard.
Well, I don't know if there were any Creole I mean, because the most Bayou Creole character in the films were Odie and the Firefly, Ray.
I just didn't know if Miss Rose or Lizette had that accent.
I'm trying to, because they're close at the end. They didn't have as much, maybe a little bit, but there was once or twice she got that southern, that really deep, like you could tell it was different.
Louisiana.
Yeah, but I really liked her. She was very engaging, very easy to listen to. And again, the audiobook person can make a huge role, because like I remember was it Meg that I said, I was like, do I hate the audiobook person or is Meg just whiny? And you said you thought it was both. But the audiobook person, like the narrator, really can make a difference. And I really liked her. And so I think that's why it was so much easier for me to keep in it, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, I have hopes that every one of these books is good. Otherwise, I'm not doing this to torture me. We've done series that I've done just to torture myself and complete it because that's who I am. But this is not the hopes. And especially with new authors. And I'm like, we could have another Elizabeth Lim, we don't even know it yet. But I was worried in the first quarter because it was feeling kind of awkward and whatever. And I was like, please be good. Please figure it out. And she does. And I think she does a really good job.
Yeah, I agree.
I am shocked how little romance is in the book for someone who is known for writing romance books.
Yeah, I agree with that.
She has way more scenes with Charlotte than she does with Naveen.
Yeah.
And granted, half of the book she's avoiding Naveen.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
But still, even those romantic moments later on where she's like, oh yeah, I remember why I like you, everyone else is there.
That's true.
It's Charlotte's usually there, or Lewis. It's somebody. It is me and you and you and me and us and our friend Steve.
Yes.
And so that was shocking. When I looked up her bio later, I would have expected way, way more romance in the book because of her background.
Yeah, that's fair.
And she honestly avoids it a lot of the time. And so I was very surprised that that wasn't more of a thing.
Yeah, well, she has the out of Tiana wanting to avoid it, but yeah, their flirtatiousness and then Tiana's constant back and forth of like, oh, I want it, oh, I don't, oh, I want it, oh, I don't, kind of thing was a little frustrating. And then, like you said, we get to the end and it's like, oh, they did get married and we didn't get to see it. Oh, come on.
I was so mad. They just dropped the line and she's like, Naveen comes in the epilogue into the kitchen and is like, can I take my wife away? And I feel robbed. I didn't need to see the wedding.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have made the 3 months later, they go back to his home country. They're talking alone in the garden.
Yeah.
That couldn't have been the proposal. That's exactly what I thought. His mom comes up and he's like, hey, you're going to have cute grandbabies because, that's what moms do apparently. But takes her out into the garden and he's like, don't worry, I'll propose to her soon. Take her into the garden. They have this cute talk and yay, Tiana's getting a new restaurant soon.
Yeah.
And then it's the next Mardi Gras and they're married and we didn't get a proposal. We didn't get a wedding.
Nothing.
We didn't get anything.
Yeah.
We don't even know if they got married in the US or they went back to his home country. Did he do both? Did he do none of them? Did his parents come to the US because they're back together?
My guess is back in the US because when he's back with his parents, he said they hadn't even talked about a proposal yet.
Which fast proposal of the wedding, which granted is the 1920s. I'm not terribly surprised.
Yeah. Well, and then she knows that that's what she wants because she has a history with him. So
still robbed. You right.
Yeah.
What the heck, romance writer?
Yeah.
Why? But yeah, Tiana's happy. Lottie is going on a cruise to England because in the beginning of the book, she's decided princes are too much effort because princesses have too many duties. And so she just wants a duke now.
I did like that. A prince is too much. A duke.
That was a cute touch, but I also don't understand why she made that decision either. She didn't have any princess duties.
Yeah, and it also wouldn't make a whole lot of sense within the context of having her memory of Naveen and the stuff erased.
Yeah, and so she doesn't remember he was a frog or anything like that. She just remembers, oh, I'm obsessed with you, and then now I'm not obsessed with you. In fact, I don't even want to be a princess, even though in the movie she went through way more having to deal with Naveen being a prince. And at the end, she's jokingly like, oh, I'll date your younger brother. There's even a thing in here talking about the younger brother, thinking Charlotte's cute or something like that, mentioning the same little brother. I'm just like, well, why do you want to duke again? Anyway, whatever. It was a cute touch, but it didn't quite make sense. But oh well, sometimes we just let that happen.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a good plot to get her out of being interested in Naveen.
Basically, the only reason she's not into Naveen anymore is she decides she doesn't want to be a princess. That's fair.
Yeah, that's what they had to do. But I do love them as friends. They are a cute pair as friends.
Yes. Charlotte's pretty great. I wish she had more scenes. Okay, the problem with Lewis is he doesn't feel like part of the gang.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel like a member of the group because he just feels like he has a connection to Tiana and talks to Tiana, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Naveen and Charlotte talk. Charlotte and Tiana talk. Naveen and Tiana talk. They even have more conversations with Lizette. And then there's Lewis. And I feel like a lot of Lewis's scenes is by himself, or when he's with the group, he's still the fourth wheel or the third wheel or whatever.
He is a little close to Naveen, right? Like they're the ones that go out looking for the six together in the bayou and they play together and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they played together one time, and so they do get kind of close, but it was just, he felt a little othered.
Yeah.
When he was more of a central plot point, to the point he barely gets mentioned in the epilogue.
Yeah, poor guy.
The epilogue is he decided to stay human. He loves jazz music too much to give it up, but hey, he'll go visit the bayou and sit there. Okay. And then it's more about how Naveen plays with them than it's about Lewis.
True. Naveen is the main character.
Lizette has this salve that she now sells to the department stores, which these same department stores that don't want black people to touch their merchandise is going to start selling black people merchandise.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a jump.
Yeah, no, Naveen totally sell the thing, which, by the way, I am a little surprised Naveen never gets touched with racism, ever.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Well, because he's got that in with LaBeouf, right? He's tied to the rich and the powerful.
He does. He has connections, but it doesn't come up in the movie because he's a prince and like he has status and royalty. But even then,
yeah,
once he moves to the US, first of all, he's a foreigner, and xenophobia is rampant during this time period, isn't it always?
True.
Doesn't really have money. He is tied to LaBeouf, but he is a brown man.
Yeah.
So it never comes up for Naveen, and I always thought that was a little bit weird that he gets a complete pass, but only Tiana's got to deal with it. So a little surprised that was never part of his story. Imagine experiencing racism for the first time as someone that comes from that rich place of power.
Yeah, that's fair.
That would be nuts, but that is not his story today. General thoughts, because I always document it, they've decided that this book is going to have chapter numbers and POV titles.
Oh, really?
I don't know how I feel about Shadow Man getting a perspective. I love good dramatic irony, but like I said, besides the, oh my gosh, I was a little boy and got tangled up with the shadows because of my mom, and then there's that one scene where he gives the poor beggar kid some coins because that used to be him, and he's like, oh no, I'm having a conscience, and then goes and steals stuff from rich people to make himself feel better. It just makes him look dumb.
Yeah, true.
Having his thoughts, just like Ursula from The Little Mermaid, ruined him a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where I feel like it would have been spookier and scarier where if it was just Tiana and Naveen and he just keeps popping up out of nowhere and you don't know what his plans are and you don't know what's going on. Maybe a couple things to be like, oh, she needs to sign the contract, and him being like, crap, she needs to sign the contract. I could totally see a chapter about that, but every chapter is just so in his head too.
Yeah.
Because most of the times we're dealing with him talking to people is from Tiana's perspective.
That's true.
And so his chapters are just so in his own head.
And just all the, oh my gosh, I've never seen my friends on the other side so upset. Yes, you've said that the past 4 chapters of your own. We're on the same day. Canonically, we haven't switched days yet, but yet you're continually being like, oh my God, they're so upset. They're so mad.
Yeah, it's circular and he sounds stupid for not figuring out things sooner. Naveen's perspectives were okay. We honestly could have just done Tiana and it would have been fine.
Probably.
I don't really know what Naveen's plot line of I need to prove myself by making this really big deal with this other company.
Yeah, it's just showing that I guess what he learned in the film hasn't really gone away and that he just has this pull and this drive, yeah, except to prove himself and be useful and hardworking.
Yeah, but there's chapters and chapters and chapters devoted just that because that's Naveen's plot line for half the book. But just the scene of Tiana laughing and going, a year ago, you would never want to be caught dead doing manual labor, and right now you're begging to.
Yeah, that was good.
That was much more impactful than I've got to prove myself by brokering a sugar deal.
True.
Which, granted, I'm happy Naveen was like, hey, we should give credit to the guy who gave me the idea, because I immediately was like, so you're going to give him a raise for figuring that out for you, right? So at least he's a good boss. But yeah, I don't know if his perspective was necessary. Charlotte as a perspective would have been amazing.
Fantastic.
Her voice would sound so different. Her mental voice would sound so different from Tiana's.
Oh, can you imagine? Oh, it would be hilarious. That's probably why they didn't do it, though, is because they couldn't do it justice.
Which is fair, but I don't know. Tiana's the only one that I feel like needed a perspective.
Yeah.
But still pretty good. Like I said, I still gave it 4 stars. One question for the author. Okay, first of all, the publisher did this author dirty.
Yeah, I saw your note about this.
Yeah, because the book is green on the front cover, right? But it has different shades of green. But the text is this one specific dark green that only works because of where it's put. But on the back flap, because hardback book, so on the flap in the back, it's just a black background, and they use that dark green there. And so I had a hard time. I am in my 20s, and I had a hard time reading her bio in the back because it was such a dark green on black.
Oh, that sucks.
It was terrible. And so they did her real dirty. They should have picked a much lighter color from the front cover than to go with dark green on black. Thanks, guys. But I just really want to know how she goes from writing adult romance to young adult Disney fantasy.
Yeah, that's a good question.
With a surprising lack of romance. How did we get here? Who approached who about this?
And that would be, I think, my question is, and I'm convinced, who wouldn't let you let this be more romantic? Because you obviously know how to. You've written many romance books. You know how to have successful. So who didn't let you have romance? Because we've had romance, right? Cinderella's romance story was so good. We've had great romance, and you weren't allowed to do it for some reason in this book. What happened?
I honestly don't know if it's Disney didn't allow her. I just wonder if she's like, I can prove my range. Like an actor who's only ever done comedy suddenly being in a drama or something. It just feels so intentional that she keeps them away from each other for most of the book. And then when they are together, it's Tiana freaking out about how she can't be with him. It feels so intentional.
Yeah.
But I'm just so curious how we got here. I'm curious about how all our authors got here because to do work for Disney, I'm always fascinated about that journey to get there. But not to say she's not worthy. She's a great author. I haven't read any of her original works, but I think she handles this book really well. She's done it really well. She deserves to be here. But there are more obvious choices, I guess, of Black authors that write fantasy and write stuff like this. And so I'm just really curious how we got here. If I was thinking the logical course, I would have assumed she would do a romance book.
Yeah.
Like one of the ones that are very heavily romance. And so I'm just curious. I would love to hear her story.
Oh, girl, I was just looking her up. Oh my gosh. You're about to die. Do you know something that she did just author and just put out? Bemused. An origin story of the Muses from Hercules.
Okay, I did see that on her page today.
That might be really good.
Okay, I'll write it down. Rating. I would give it dig a little deeper out of 10. I think we could have pulled something with that first half and maybe dug into some stuff a little deeper with Naveen and Tiana or Louis or Lizette's thrown in kind of in the end, and then she's like a little tag along. So we're there. We're so close. But if we just go a little farther, I think it could have been a 5-star.
I would rate it a new ride at Disney World out of 10. It's there. We like the change. I'm sure it's going to be great. It was a good novel. I'll probably read it again.
If I read it again, I would audiobook it.
Yeah, I would want you to experience the audiobook for this one.
Because that first hurdle is a lot for reading it. But solid maybe on read again.
I would definitely recommend this one to people. I even told my husband, this one's good. You might like this one.
Yeah, I'd recommend this one.
Yeah.
If someone was like, I really like Princess and the Frog or just Disney princesses or Disney in general, this is a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Especially if it inspires more people to go watch the movie again.
Yeah.
Favorite of the series so far. So we have pointed out that it depends in my mind on what's lacking in the book. If it's lacking action, I'll say Mulan. But if it's lacking romance, I'll say Cinderella.
It holds up.
It holds up. Yeah, I think Cinderella is my favorite of the series so far. Like the romance, it's just so well done. It's so good. And I'm just like, why? And to think about it, Merida, the whole thing is how she doesn't want to talk to boys. They're gross. Ew. How did she get Merida? The one that also will probably not have any romance in it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. I didn't even even think about it like that.
Questions, but it's okay.
Yeah, I adore Merida, so it's going to be interesting to see what if the witch gave Merida a different spell. What is it with her and these? Now, that is a very remarkably similar plot line.
That is true. Right now, we don't have to worry about that because the next one is Elizabeth Lim.
Whoa, here we go.
But have you read this book? If you could be a frog or an alligator, which would you be? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit like. And if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thank you for exploring Almost There with us.
Join us next time when we'll be covering 3 books from the Animorphs series, The Invasion, The Visitor, and The Encounter by K.A. Applegate.
I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Caitlin.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time. Escape with Me Book Club is a Lunar Skulk production. Check us out on TikTok or Instagram to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.